Okay, good morning. I'm Jack Berryman, ACSM historian, and we're here this morning with Dan Bernardot as part of the ACSM video series, Distinguished Leaders in Sports Medicine and Exercise Science. So welcome, Dan.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for stopping by. It's a busy week for everybody. I wondered if you could just start off telling us, where you're at now, your position. I think you're at Georgia State, or what department, what you're teaching, and that your research, that type of thing, and also your current involvement with the college, whether it be committees or what.
Sure.
Editorial boards and that thing.
Well, right now I'm a full professor of nutrition and a full professor of kinesiology and health, which is a little bit unique in universities to hold two academic professorships. But it's nice for me because my work actually covers both areas, because I'm very interested in nutrition.
Are they separate departments?
They are separate departments, yeah.
Okay.
My work covers nutrition, but it also covers the interaction of physical activity and nutrition, sports nutrition. Mm-hmm. So it's actually a very nice arrangement, because I have an opportunity to access students from both disciplines. Yeah. And it works very nicely for me.
What school's nutrition? Or,
health.
Structurally.
Structurally, it's nursing and health professions.
Okay.
And kinesiology and health is in another college.
That's what I was wondering,
right.
How that was set up.
Right.
Are they in arts and sciences, or what's
No, it's education and human development.
Because every university seems different.
Every university is different. I also am an adjunct professor of biology, which is in arts and sciences, and I'm an adjunct professor of public health. But all that means is I go to a lot of meetings.
Right.
So,
Well, what classes do you teach?
The big one is I teach a graduate class in advanced sports nutrition, which is sort of the ending class that a student would take if they're interested in working in the area of nutrition and physical fitness. Graduate class. I also teach an undergraduate class, which has become so large that we've actually had to hire other people to assist in teaching. So we've got multiple units going every semester.
And what is that about?
It's nutrition and physical fitness undergraduate class.
I can see why it would be popular.
And I think as a result of the popularity of that class, a publisher, the main publisher for ACSM, Wolters Kluwer Lippincott, has asked me to write the ACSM book on sports nutrition.
Oh, fantastic.
So I'm working on that now.
Fantastic.
And hopefully by the end of the year, at least the first draft will be done.
Yeah, I was going to say, be prepared. It generally takes a little longer than you think.
Right. This isn't my first book, but it's a big project. But I think it's a great project, and the publisher is really an excellent publisher to work with, so top notch.
So that seems like it'd be a class that any student on campus would be interested in.
The undergraduate
class.
Yes,
yeah.
In fact, most of the students are either nutrition or exercise science, but we do get quite a lot of students. It's open.
Yeah,
the problem is that we're predisposed to giving it to students who actually need it for their degree.
For their major.
And then if there's space, we let other students in, and that's one of the reasons why we've had to expand the offerings, because there are quite a lot of students who are interested in that area.
Yeah, absolutely. What are you doing now, Dan, as far as college activities?
I serve on the Olympic and Paralympic Committee, which is a really excellent committee. I mean, I really like the way that they interact with the international community as a whole and the Olympic movement as a whole. Some very excellent people on the committee. And in the past, I've worked on the international committee as well. So
which is what Ron is doing now. That was just
exactly.
Here, so.
As a matter of fact, I cycled off that committee while Ron was still chair. So
yeah, that's, as we were he was discussing, that's becoming greater importance for the college.
All one has to do is go to the international reception.
He said it was just packed.
It's packed, and it's phenomenal, and the languages that you hear I mean, that really speaks to the importance of the American College of Sports Medicine. I mean, how it really has achieved a level of international recognition, which I think is without rival for any organization.
Yeah, that's really amazing. If we could drop back now to your high school days.
My high school days. I'm
college
not going to tell you how long ago that was. So
I might ask you for some dates.
I was actually born in northern Greece and emigrated to the United States with my parents and my brother in 1952. And we lived in the Bronx. And when my father got his license to practice medicine in the United States, we moved to northern New York, to the Lake Placid region.
Oh, yeah, it's beautiful.
So it's a small town just outside of Lake Placid. And grew up there. Went to Franklin Academy High School, which was a terrific place. I started playing cello when I was 8 years old, and I still play cello. Up there, I went to the Crane School of Music as an 8-year-old under Professor Brombach. There, a wonderful, wonderful man, phenomenal teacher.
What an experience.
And the music instructor from the small town where I lived was getting a master's degree at SUNY SUNY Potsdam at the Crane School. And he used to take me there once a week because he had to go there for his degree. And his name was Chip Chippinelli, and also a great guy. But it was a wonderful experience to be able to play music. I was in the band, and
your strength training was carrying the cello, right?
that was part of it. I also, but being in northern New York, part of it was I gained an interest in sports because downhill skiing was
Lake Placid.
Right. So all of my classmates were downhill skiers, and I was as well. I started skiing at a very young age, and that was my primary sport. And the ski season was long. I mean, I don't know if it still is because of a little bit of warming, but we used to ski from Thanksgiving into May. So the better part of a year we were. Was
there a competitive phase up there with your skiing in high school?
I did. I used to race. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
And then where did you head off to college?
Well, I wanted to ski. That was really the thing that I wanted to do most. And I got a degree in food service administration because I wanted to work in a resort. And when I got that degree, I also got my draft notice. And I asked them, how could I not get drafted? And they said, well, you have to show continuation. I couldn't go from food service administration to architecture, or the draft board would take me. So I wasn't ready to be drafted at the time. I graduated high school very young. I was 16 years old.
So what college did you end up going to?
Well, the only thing I could go into was foods and nutrition, where they would take my credits. So I said, okay, foods and nutrition it is.
Where though?
Plattsburgh, State University of New York at Plattsburgh.
Okay.
And liked it, and really became fascinated with nutrition. And
so this is Vietnam time?
It is. Yes. That was. And I had a lot of tragic events from classmates.
Me too.
With that, it was a bad time.
Yeah.
But I certainly appreciate what my fellow students did in going. Anyway, I went to graduate school at Cornell University, got my Ph.D. There.
In nutrition?
Yes, and it was a combination of public health and nutrition. But I always had an interest in sports, and so my first job was at Western Kentucky University, as I was still finishing my dissertation, but they were kind enough to hire me, ABD. And in a discussion with the chair there, they asked what I would like to do, and I said, I'd like to kind of integrate nutrition in sports. And so they said, fine, and I did that. And then right away, I got a call from the basketball coach at Western Kentucky asking me if I would work with the team. And I said, sure. And so that really got me engaged.
What year was that?
In the area. Oh gosh, you're going to ask me about years.
I told you.
That was, I actually got my degree in 1980,
But you were
January
there
of 1980, but I
maybe
was
a
there,
year
yeah, 79. So
Okay.
it was 79, 80. And then when I got the degree, I got a nicer position at Illinois State University, so I went there. And I also worked with basketball and football. And they hired a new gymnastics coach at Illinois State University. And she walked into my office and she said, I've just met my team and I understand you work with the athletes here. I need for you to work with the gymnasts. And I said, I'm sorry, I've never worked with gymnastics, don't know the
Are
sport.
they women and men, or just women?
In that case, it was just a women's team.
Yeah.
And her name was Jan Anthony, absolutely wonderful coach. She was a gymnast at Penn State University, a terrific person. And I said, I'll tell you what, I'll work with the team on two conditions. One, we'll do it as a research project so that I can learn. And two, you have to tell the basketball coach and the football coach that I'm going to work with you, and therefore I can't work with them. And I thought, okay, no coach in their right mind would ever go down that path, but she did. She was naive, and I immediately got a I got a call from the other coaches, and they said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "No, I'll take care of you." But I started working with gymnastics, and we did publish some early work that we found out with the collegiate gymnastics team, and. For some reason, USA Gymnastics read it, and they said, would you like to work with the junior national team? And I said, sure. And so I started working with the junior national team, which was a feeder team to the national team. And then when a lot of the gymnasts who I'd worked with as juniors went to the senior national team, they started requesting me to continue to work with them. So in 1992, I started working with the United States gymnastics team and worked with them through the 96 Olympics. I was with them.
Where did they train, Dan? Was it in Colorado, or where? It was different then?
Yeah, depended on where their coach was. Yeah, some of them were in Houston, some of them were in California, but we used to come together in training camps in different places, and Olympic Training Center or in Pennsylvania. It depended on what the facilities were like. And then we ended up with a very nice team gold medal at the 96 Olympics, which was just wonderful. Great group of athletes, and the coaches were really phenomenal. And so that was a really good experience. And then I was on the international governing body for gymnastics for 5 years. For Fédération Internationale de Gymnastique. I think I was the first American ever on the medical commission for that.
Had you heard about ACSM in
no,
this interim?
I had not.
Okay.
I had not. Okay. I was very directed towards more nutrition. So I was a registered dietitian, and I was licensed in the state where I was working. So my orientation was at the time towards the American Dietetic Association. Which is now the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. And after I worked at the International Medical Commission for Gymnastics for 5 years, the United States Olympic Committee and USA Track and Field asked me to work with the marathoners. And so I was with the marathon team in 2004 in Athens, and we won 2 medals. I think it was the first time in the history of the United States we got Meb Keflezighi, who's here, actually.
I saw.
Meb won the silver, and Dina Castor won the bronze. And they're just great athletes. So,
what a thrill.
Yeah, it was phenomenal. Yeah. But at that time, when I was working with track and field, Walt Thompson came to Georgia State University, and he was very oriented to ACSM. We became friends. I was actually on the search committee that brought him into the university. I chaired the committee, actually, that brought him in. And he said, you know, you really, your interaction with nutrition and physical fitness and exercise, you really need to explore ACSM membership. And I did, and I've never looked back.
What year was that?
Oh, gosh. I've been a
Walt
member.
will remember.
He might remember, but it's probably at least 15 years. I mean, it's a while.
Okay.
And ACSM has really brings a lot to the table. And they have a lot of good nutrition work here as well.
They do, yeah.
And nicely, the nutrition work is exactly down the alley of what I'm interested, which is the interaction of nutrition and physical fitness.
I remember when some of the first nutrition, I think were mostly women actually. What's her name? Chris at Penn State.
Yes.
Started coming
Right.
and presenting material, and the sessions grew rapidly.
Yes.
You know, tremendous amount of interest.
Yeah, it's superb. I mean, what they bring to the table, and the membership actually are the sort of people who I like rubbing elbows with because we have similar interests.
Yeah, and I would think that you would have so much in common with the clinicians. I mean, you're doing a lot of ways the same thing.
That's true. You know, one of my closest colleagues here is Mark Hutchinson.
Oh, I talked with him at 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock. So
he's a great guy.
And Mark and I were the team leaders at the World Championships for rhythmic gymnastics. So we were asked to lead the team in Budapest, and you know, he's just great. I've worked with him also during the '96 Olympics. He was mainly working with rhythmic. I was working with both rhythmic and artistic gymnastics. So yeah, he's wonderful, and we interact all the time. And you hit it on the head. The interaction between the clinical aspects of sports medicine and how nutrition interplays with it is profound.
Absolutely, yeah. Have you gotten involved with FIMS?
I have not directly, although I do some workshops with physicians who have FIMS clinics.
Yeah, because initially it was more the FIMS clinicians that were Olympic physicians, and we didn't have much going on at that time on that side of things. I had another question. When you first started working with the gymnasts, was the disordered eating, amenorrhea, you know, the things that you hear more about now, issues then?
Well,
With
you know, one of the things,
especially female athletes.
well, but it happens. I mean, I also did the first national study on jockey health and nutrition a while back, and so it happens, and most of them were males.
Yeah, where weight's
And
an issue.
yes, I mean, I think in any sport, or I just had with some very excellent co-authors, we published a position paper on nutrition for divers. And, you know, divers are very concerned about how they look, obviously.
Body fat and all
Right,
that.
so, yes, it's definitely not just women. Women, I think, are at higher risk. I think the demands on them are different than they are on men, but certainly men are at risk. And when I first started working with USA Gymnastics, you could look at what a lot of the gymnasts had as eating disorders, but really what they had was imposed disordered eating, which is quite different. I mean,
Eating guidelines that were applicable to their performance.
When I first started working with the national team, I said, let me observe and see what happens, you know, and see what goes on. So I did a couple of days of observation at a training camp at the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs. And it was very obvious that the eating frequency that they had wasn't matching their expenditures, and they were having, you know, problems. So they were forbidden to eat or drink anything over the course of a 5.5-hour practice in the afternoon. And if you look at energy dynamics, that's impossible. I mean, blood sugar fluctuates if you're not exercising, maybe 3-hour units. If you're exercising, you can develop low blood sugar in half an hour if you started the exercise in good shape. And
so that was counterproductive.
It was
right
counterproductive.
Away, that you realized that no one had ever really.
It was amazing, and I suggested, well, let's give them at least a snack halfway through the practice. And they looked at me as if I'd been dropped in from Mars, and they said, no, this is gymnastics. You know, what are you thinking? We have to keep their weight down. And I said, well, they're going to injure themselves because blood sugar is low. The brain doesn't work well. If you get mental fatigue, you get muscular fatigue, so your coordination goes. So there were a lot of reasons to at least do something to intervene with them. And I can become a pest. So the head gymnastics coach at the time, who herself was a three-time Olympian, Muriel Grossfeld, looked at me and she
Oh, I
said,
remember her.
yeah, she's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Muriel looked at me and she said, oh, okay, we can try this snacking thing once. And so I worked with the cafeteria lady. We brought the snacks out, and the gymnasts had some snacks, and she immediately took a gymnast who she had been working with on one vault for days, hadn't gotten it quite right. And she said, okay, do the vault. And Muriel was quite sure that the gymnast would have projectile vomiting from eating.
Right.
But it was the first time the gymnast
She
nailed
did
the
it.
vault.
I knew you were going to say that.
And so Muriel looked at me and she said, okay, we can do this snacking thing. So
Timing's everything.
So we had a rule that the gymnasts ate every 3 hours, no matter what. And so we ended up with the heaviest team at the Olympic Games, with the tallest team at the Olympic Games, with the oldest team at the Olympic Games, because we had more muscle, less fat, and better developed, but we had experienced athletes, and so we won the gold medal.
Do you think, Dan, that spread that idea then to training for other sports? Was that
That's very
one
true.
of the
That's
first
actually
time?
probably. That's,
I mean, I can think of training for all sorts of things that were
right.
the same deal.
Right. Yeah, I actually developed. I wrote a paper and I presented it here at ACSM. I don't know, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, on within-day energy balance and the importance of it. And I actually have some software which I've developed to help practitioners who work with athletes understand what points in the day the athletes they work with might be out of a desirable energy balance range. So that's actually the area of focus for most of my research right now, which is how can we help athletes of all types. And now we've found out, I've got graduate students who are using the same paradigm on non-athletes, and they're finding, my goodness, obesity is related to this in a large extent also, because when people delay eating, it's very strange, you know, we hear this calories in, calories out paradigm, but people talk about it randomly. They talk about it in 24 hours. So if you eat 2,000 calories in 24 hours, but your body expended 2,000 calories in 24 hours, you're in theoretical energy balance. But you're not, because how you get there influences how the endocrine system responds and what your body will be like. And so if you look at it in real time, you can get an understanding of how the endocrine system will respond, what happens with ghrelin, with insulin, with leptin, and you have a much better idea of what the outcomes will be.
Yeah, I remember talking to one of the Seahawk professional football players and about eating, and so he goes, well, I eat 6 times a day.
You know if you look at the eating frequency studies, I'm actually the nutritionist for the Atlanta Falcons, so I work with football players as well. If you look at eating frequency studies, they're not consistently showing that you get better outcomes so people who eat more often versus people who eat less often. Because they don't look at something which is very important, which is how well does that frequent eating satisfy the energy requirement. So if the eating frequency doesn't match the energy expenditure, can I give you an analogy? Imagine that you're driving from Boston to San Francisco, and you talk to your car, and you say, look, car, take me to San Francisco. I promise you I'll give you all the fuel you needed for the trip once we get there. You can't do that, right? The car's going to say no. You also can't preload. You can't say, I'm going to give you all the fuel you need for the trip right now. And you also can't say, I'm going to stop for gas every 3 hours, because if you've got the gas pedal pressed down hard, you're going to burn more gas per unit of time. You have to stop sooner.
That's a great analogy, Dan.
So you have to dynamically match energy expenditure with intake, or it just doesn't work.
Well, I told you this would go really, really fast. So thank you so much.
My pleasure.
I really enjoyed talking with you.
It's good to talk with you.
Could talk another hour for sure, but
thank you.